On a quiet afternoon in Phoenix, Arizona, a scene unfolded that would remain etched in public memory. It was at the growing memorial outside the headquarters of Turning Point USA, where family, friends, and supporters had gathered to honor the life of Charlie Kirk. The conservative activist, only 31 years old, had been killed days earlier in Utah, sending shockwaves across the country. Yet among the many tributes and the heavy atmosphere of mourning, one moment stood out above all others. It was the moment when Charlie Kirk's father could no longer hold back his pain and collapsed in tears, crying out the words that cut through the silence. "Give me back my son. He's only 31. The father's grief became the central image of the memorial. Until then, he had carried himself with visible strength, greeting mourners, acknowledging supporters, and trying to maintain composure in the public eye. But the loss of a son is a weight no parent can bear easily. When his emotions finally broke through, it was raw and unfiltered. His voice trembled as he demanded the impossible, asking for his son back, expressing the depth of love and loss in one anguished cry. Those who stood near him lowered their heads in silence. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Many understood that in that single cry they were witnessing the deepest form of parental pain, the kind that resonates far beyond politics or public life. Standing beside him was country music star Luke Bryan. Known across America for his music career, Luke Bryan was present not as a performer, but as a friend. He had grown close to Charlie Kirk in recent years and admired his energy and conviction. When the father collapsed in grief, Luke placed his hand on the grieving man's shoulder. It was not a performance, nor was it for the cameras. It was a simple act of human compassion. His quiet presence was an attempt to steady a father consumed by sorrow. In that instant, Luke Bryan was not a celebrity. He was a companion, offering comfort in the most personal way possible. The father's breakdown and Luke Bryan's gesture quickly became the defining memory of the memorial. For the family, it was a moment of unimaginable pain. For the public, it was a reminder that behind every headline is a human being, and behind every public figure is a family that grieves just like any other. Charlie Kirk's father had raised his son, watched him grow into adulthood, seen him build a career and become a father himself. Losing him at just 31 years old was not only a national story, it was a personal tragedy. The video of the father's grief and Luke Bryan's support spread across social media platforms within hours. On Facebook, Instagram, and X, the clip was shared thousands of times. Comments poured in from across the political spectrum. Some supporters expressed deep sorrow for the father's cry, saying they could feel the pain in his words. Others admitted that while they had disagreed with Charlie Kirk's politics, they could not help but empathize with a father mourning his son. Many wrote prayers and words of encouragement directed specifically to Charlie Kirk's father, recognizing his suffering as the most heartbreaking element of the tragedy. The scene outside Turning Point USA's headquarters had been building for days. Supporters brought flowers, candles, handwritten notes, and flags. They left personal prayers and tokens of remembrance. The father's collapse at the memorial, however, underscored the human dimension more powerfully than anything else. It showed that for his family, Charlie was not only a national personality or a political activist. He was a son taken far too soon. The grief of the father was set against the circumstances of Charlie Kirk's death. The 31-year-old was killed while addressing an audience at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. The assassination shocked the nation and immediately raised questions about security at public events. Investigators began working through the details, asking how the attacker was able to get so close and whether there were failures in protocol. For the Kirk family, however, these questions were distant compared to the immediate pain of loss. The father's cry captured what no investigation could answer: the irreplaceable absence of a child. As the investigation continued, attention also turned toward funeral preparations. Organizers announced that the public funeral service would be held at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. The decision to use such a large venue reflected both Charlie's public profile and the scale of the national response to his death. Thousands were expected to attend, including leaders, supporters, and ordinary people who felt connected to his work or moved by his passing. For his father, the funeral would be another painful milestone, another reminder that his son was gone. In the days before the funeral, a special tribute initiative was launched. A Charlie Kirk tribute shirt was introduced, with all proceeds directed to an organization chosen by his wife. The initiative was designed to give people across the country a way to participate in honoring his memory, especially those unable to attend the funeral in Arizona. While the shirts represented public solidarity, for the father, each gesture of support was also a recognition of the son he had loved and lost. The father's grief, more than any other element, has defined how the tragedy has been remembered. His cry, "Give me back my son! He's only 31," has been quoted in news reports, replayed in videos, and echoed in conversations across the nation. It was not a political statement nor a public performance. It was the simple, devastating truth of a parent whose child had been taken from him. For many Americans, it became the most powerful reminder that grief transcends every barrier. Luke Bryan's presence at the memorial amplified this truth. His hand on the father's shoulder symbolized unity, compassion, and the power of human connection. Fans of the country music star praised him for standing beside the Kirk family in their darkest hour, calling it an act of humility and empathy. The nation saw in that moment that fame and politics fade in the face of shared humanity. As coverage continued, the father's role in the story remained central. Reporters highlighted his composure in the days before the memorial, his attempt to stand strong for his family, and the inevitable collapse when the grief became too great. Every tribute, every public comment, and every message of sympathy seemed to circle back to him. The father had not chosen the public spotlight, but the circumstances of his son's death placed him at the center of the nation's attention. The questions surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination remain. Investigators continue to analyze security footage, interview witnesses, and assess potential lapses in planning. Public debate has focused on how to prevent similar tragedies in the future. But even in these discussions, the image of the grieving father has remained a constant reminder of the stakes. For him, no answer will bring back his son. The father's tears are a living testament to the cost of violence. At the upcoming funeral, the father is expected to play a prominent role. His presence will embody the private loss within the public farewell. Thousands will gather at State Farm Stadium, but all eyes will also be on the father who must say goodbye in front of the nation. Observers expect that his grief will again capture the essence of the tragedy, not politics, not headlines, but the bond between parent and child. In the broader reflection on Charlie Kirk's life, tributes have mentioned his activism, his leadership, and his role as the founder of Turning Point USA. Yet for the father, the legacy is simpler and more personal. Charlie was the boy he raised, the man he watched grow, and the young father he saw taken away. Every tribute to his career is overshadowed by the personal loss his father now carries. When people look back on the days following Charlie Kirk's death, several images will stand out. The flowers and candles at the memorial, the supporters standing in silence, the questions raised about public safety. But the defining image will remain the father's collapse, the cry for a son gone too soon, and the hand of Luke Bryan offering comfort. That moment summed up both the pain and the compassion that defined the memorial. The father's grief has become more than a private sorrow. It has become a national symbol of loss, reminding everyone that public figures are also sons, husbands, and fathers. Behind every career is a family, and behind every headline is a loved one. The father's voice continues to echo, a reminder that the tragedy is not measured only in public terms, but in personal heartbreak. As America prepares for Charlie Kirk's funeral, the memory of his father's tearful cry remains at the center of the story. The grief is raw, the loss is permanent, and the investigation continues. Yet amid the sorrow, the father's pain has united strangers across the country in empathy and reflection. Luke Bryan's quiet gesture reinforced the message that compassion can bridge divides, even in the darkest of times. Charlie Kirk will be remembered in many ways, as an activist, as a leader, and as a public figure. But for his father, he will always be the son taken away far too soon. For the nation, the father's grief will remain a reminder of how fragile life is and how deep the bonds of love can be. In the end, the saddest goodbye to Charlie Kirk was not in the headlines, not in the speeches, but in the tearful words of a father who cried out for his child and in the silence that followed.